Now, one of the kind of forgotten cocktails, if you like, in fact it predates the cocktail, is the family of drinks called punches. And they're absolutely amazing. They really do have a delicious character. Now, the punch predates the cocktail by about 150 years. In fact, it comes to us from India, where the name punch is the Hindi word for 5. So typically, the old-fashioned recipe for a punch was 1 of sour, 2 of sweet, 3 of strong, 4 of weak, pinch of spice. And those were your 5 ingredients. And if you could remember that, then chances are you would have a pretty good chance of making a punch. We're going to play around with those ratios slightly today as well. We're going to make a drink called a rendezvous. It's very, very simple. Now, a punch should always involve fresh fruit. Should involve the freshest juices you can get your hands on as well, and then something to lengthen it. In this case, we're going to try and a lot of modern punches, if you like, and the sorts of things that people make up, and if they have a lot of people coming around, they tend to be very much down the tutti frutti vein. So we're going to try and make something which is a bit drier than that today. So what we have here, freshly squeezed lemon juice. That's going to be our 1 of sour. Our 2 of sweet is going to be an elderflower liqueur. Our 3 of strong is going to be 42 below passion fruit, and our 4 of weak is going to be basic soda water, or club soda, or call it what you will, sparkling water. And then to add a spice, it's not quite a spice, but to add an element of interest and bitterness, we're going to add some fresh orange, and then the flesh from about 4 passion fruits. So we're going to start with this first. Now, when you're unused to making punches, you probably want to sort of just play around with your ingredients slightly, just to it's always easier to make things weaker, and it's always easier to make things more sweet. But it's very, very hard once you get away from the right balance of sweet and sour to get back to it again. So always err on the side of caution. You can always make it more diluted by adding more soda water. You can always make it more sweet. So we're just going to squeeze these. Passion fruit's obviously going to give it a little bit of bitterness coming through. You might just as easily use ginger. You might just as easily use fresh mint. And then this is going to be served up. Now, what you normally do with this, I'd say, is either keep it ice cold in the fridge, or if you really have the time to prepare, make a large block of ice, which you can then set in the middle of your punch jug. So we've got our nice little bits of fresh passion fruit going in there. We'll dispense with the holes. All right, so we've got our passion fruit sitting in there. Now, to give you some idea, let's say we'll just make a rough, with punches, you don't need to be quite so exact, but let's sort of roughly say that we're going to use half a glass of sour, and we're going to use a full glass of sweet. And so the measurements sort of with when you're playing around with a punch can be a little more haphazard. Elderflower is going to balance out the lemon, and it's going to make it slightly perfumed, but it's also got a lovely dry character. So that goes in there. Making punches, as you can see, is pretty easy. So then we're going to take a little bit of 42 below passion fruit. So here we're using a full glass, and then we'll use half a glass again. And then now, at this point, we'll get the chance to work out how dilute would we like to make it. And while it's still in concentrated form, before we start to dilute it, do we want to add more sugar, more sweetening agent, or do we want to think about a little bit more lemon juice, because we have both, obviously. It's tasting pretty good. To my taste, probably slightly on the sweet side, so we're just going to add a splash more lemon. Then, just before we top it up with soda, we're just going to cut into these. And the oils will actually come out of the orange skin as well, and they're going to actually start to make it slightly drier and add in one more sort of flavour. So you've got lots of very, very aromatic characteristics in here with the elderflower, the 42 below passion fruit, the fresh passion fruit, and now the orange skins. So what we're looking for here, typically once you get used to making punches and you choose your own serving vessel, so this is just a fairly standard glass jug, you can get at any catering store, then you'll get very used to sort of the rough proportions you need between your sweet element, your sour element, and what is the exact serving size for this jug. In this case, I've overdone it slightly, but that's looking about perfect. Then we just give this a quick stir. Now, just before we go and serve it to any guest, what I want to do here is just make sure that I haven't sent it out too tart, or I haven't sent it out far too sweet, because there's nothing worse than a very, very sweet punch. So using a fresh straw, I'm just going to give this another taste. At which point I'd say that's tasting delicious. Very, very refreshing, very, very light. And then all we do here Taking our ice-filled tumblers, we just strain this off and dispense that to our guests. And that's a rendezvous. Very, very simple, basic punch involving 42 below passion fruit, elderflower liqueur, fresh lemon juice, and a little bit of soda water or club soda. That's delicious.